You remember the conversation clearly. They said they'd be there. They promised. But when you bring it up, they look at you like you've lost your mind. I never said that you're making things up again, and suddenly you're the one apologizing. This is called gaslighting, and it's one of the most disorienting forms of manipulation you'll ever experience. It doesn't start with something dramatic. It starts small. A denied comment here, a rewritten argument there. That's not how it happened. You're too sensitive. You misunderstood. Over time, these tiny reality shifts do something dangerous. They train you to distrust yourself. Think about what that actually means. Once you stop trusting your own memory, you have to rely on someone else's version of reality. And if that person is manipulating you, they now control the narrative of your entire relationship. The terrifying part is how gradual it is. You don't wake up one day completely doubting yourself. It happens slowly, conversation by conversation, until second-guessing your own mind feels completely normal. If you constantly feel confused after talking to someone, if you find yourself keeping notes just to prove things happened, pay attention. Your instincts are trying to tell you something important, and once they've made you question your own mind, controlling your actions becomes even easier, especially when they use one of the most powerful emotional tools in existence, guilt. Here's how it works. You try to set a simple boundary. Maybe you tell your partner you need a night to yourself. Maybe you tell a family member you can't make it to yet another event. A reasonable request, a normal human need. But instead of respect, you get a reaction, a heavy sigh, a wounded silence, maybe tears. I guess I just don't matter to you. Suddenly you're not a person with needs. You're the bad guy. That's the leash, and it works because you're a caring person. Manipulators know this. They don't ask you to do things. They make you feel like refusing makes you selfish, cold, ungrateful. Your friend cancels on their own plans constantly. But the one time you do it, they act devastated for days. Notice the pattern. Your no becomes their injury. Your boundary becomes their evidence that you don't care enough. Genuine love doesn't punish you for having limits. When someone consistently weaponizes your compassion to override your choices, that's not hurt feelings. That's control dressed up as emotion. But guilt isn't the only weapon in the toolkit. Some manipulators don't push you down. They pull you in, then disappear, then pull you back again. And that cycle might be the most psychologically addictive trap of all. One day they're warm, attentive, making you feel like the most important person in the room. The next day they're cold, distant, barely acknowledging you exist, and you have no idea what changed. So what do? You scramble. You replay conversations, soften your tone, try harder, you start chasing the version of them that made you feel good. That's not an accident. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When reward is unpredictable, we don't pull back, we pursue more desperately. The inconsistency itself becomes the hook. Think about it this way. If someone is always cold, you eventually walk away, but when they're sometimes wonderful, you stay hoping to unlock that version again. The confusion doesn't push you out, it creates attachment. Healthy relationships have a baseline. You know where you stand, but when someone's mood feels like weather you can never forecast, and you find yourself constantly trying to earn their warmth back. That's not a personality quirk, that's a leash made of uncertainty. And if uncertainty keeps you trapped, urgency keeps you compliant. Because when someone pressures you to decide right now, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. Think about how this shows up. A partner says, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need to think about it." A coworker pushes you to agree to something before you've read the details. Someone selling you an investment opportunity says, "The window closes tonight, no exceptions." The specifics change, but the mechanism is identical. They shrink your window of reflection until there's no room left for your own judgment. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Your instincts need time to speak. Manipulators know this. So they manufacture urgency, false deadlines, emotional ultimatums, dramatic ticking clocks, specifically to drown out that inner voice before it can warn you. And it works, because when you're rushed, your brain shifts into reactive mode. You stop evaluating and start responding. You agree to things the calmer version of you never would have touched. Notice how often their urgency conveniently appears right when you start asking questions. That's not coincidence. Pressure is the tool they use precisely when reflection would reveal the truth. Slow down and watch how quickly their emergency loses its power. But slowing down only helps if you still have people around you who can offer honest perspective, and that's exactly what the next move targets. Manipulators rarely lock you in a room and cut off contact. It's far more subtle than that. It starts with a joke about your best friend. "She's kind of dramatic, don't you think?" Then a quiet complaint about your brother. "He never really supported you anyway." A planted doubt here, a dismissive comment there. Before you realize what's happening, the people you once turned to for clarity have been quietly discredited in your mind. And when you do reach out to them, suddenly that becomes the problem. Talking to your mom about relationship issues is disloyal. Asking a friend for advice is letting outsiders into something they don't understand. Outside perspective gets reframed as betrayal. As dangerous, here's why this matters so much. Every manipulative pattern we've talked about, the gaslighting, the guilt, the chaos, the urgency, all of it becomes almost impossible to see clearly when you're surrounded by only one voice. Their voice, isolation, isn't a side effect of manipulation. It's the strategy. It removes every mirror that might show you what's actually happening. And once they've removed those outside mirrors, they become the only one defining how you see yourself. That's when things get particularly dangerous. Here's something unsettling. Manipulators pay close attention. Early in a relationship, romantic, professional, even a friendship, they ask questions, they listen, they seem so understanding. You open up about feeling like you're not smart enough, not successful enough, not lovable enough. It feels like intimacy. It isn't. It's reconnaissance, because later those confessions become leverage. The same person who once said you're so hard on yourself starts casually mentioning how other people find you difficult to work with. The partner who knew you feared being abandoned suddenly threatens to leave every time you push back on something. Your deepest fears about yourself get handed back to you, precisely shaped to make you comply. And the praise works the same way. They'll lift you up just enough to make you dependent on their approval, then withhold it the moment you step out of line. You start chasing their validation, because they've made themselves the authority on your worth. The compliment becomes a leash, too. This is calculated. They didn't stumble into your weak spots, they mapped them. So here's what ties all of this together, and it might be the most important thing you hear today. You're exhausted, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It's a bone-deep, walking through fog kind of exhaustion. Your mind is constantly working overtime, replaying conversations, second-guessing yourself, trying to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. But when someone asks if you're okay, you say yes, because you can't quite explain what's wrong, you just know something is. That's not a coincidence. That's the result of manipulation working exactly as intended. Here's what people don't talk about enough. Your body keeps score even when your mind makes excuses. You rationalize the behavior. You defend them to other people. You convince yourself it's complicated, but your nervous system doesn't lie. The dread before seeing them, the relief when they cancel plans, the way you feel smaller every time you walk away from a conversation. Those aren't overreactions. Those are data points. Manipulation is hard to name because it's designed to be. It hides inside love, loyalty, and obligation. It makes you feel like the problem is you, your sensitivity, your paranoia, your inability to just let things go. But patterns don't lie. And if you've recognized yourself in more than one of these signs, that recognition matters. Trust it. Not every complicated relationship is abusive, but no healthy relationship should leave you feeling like you're losing your mind. Trust the pattern, not just the excuses.